Welcome to the Coins channel, and what if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Picture this: you're emptying your jeans before doing laundry, and a small, worn-out nickel rolls out, clinking softly against the counter. It looks ordinary, maybe a bit dull from age, but when you notice the year 1985 and the small letter P just beside Jefferson's portrait, something inside you sparks. Could this be one of those coins? The kind that turns everyday people into millionaires? It's hard to believe, but the 1985 P. Jefferson nickel, struck in Philadelphia, has shocked the world by reaching a jaw-dropping value of $444 million in the collector's market. Yes, you heard that right. And if that seems unbelievable, stay with me until the end, because the next few coins we'll uncover make this one look like pocket change in comparison. But let's start with this unassuming nickel that changed everything. The 1985 P. Jefferson nickel might seem like just another 5-cent coin minted during an uneventful year, but hidden within its details lies a fascinating blend of history, minting errors, and collector obsession that skyrocketed its worth. To understand how this small coin became worth hundreds of millions, we need to rewind to the mid-1980s. The U.S. Mint in Philadelphia was producing billions of coins annually, and 1985 was no different except for one small, nearly invisible flaw. That year, the mint faced mechanical inconsistencies in its planchet preparation and die striking, which caused a rare and almost unnoticeable misalignment on a handful of Jefferson nickels. These flawed coins were never meant to see daylight. They were supposed to be melted down or destroyed, but a few escaped into circulation, and one of them, the famous Shadow Jefferson variety, became a legend among collectors. The error looked simple: a faint doubling of Jefferson's face, subtle enough to miss at first glance, but distinct under magnification. The left cheek appeared to cast a ghost-like duplicate shadow. For decades, these nickels circulated unnoticed, passed from hand to hand, paying for cups of coffee and bus fares, until one day in 2007, a collector at a small coin show in Ohio stumbled upon a slightly off-centered 1985 P nickel. He paid 50 cents for it and walked away with what would become one of the most valuable modern coins in existence. The coin was later authenticated by the Professional Coin Grading Service, PCGS, as a mint state specimen with a full step strike, meaning every step on Monticello's image on the reverse was crisp and visible. Combine that with its doubling error and untouched condition, and you have a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. It sold privately for $444 million, shocking the numismatic world and rewriting the definition of pocket fortune. Now you might be wondering, how could a 5-cent coin reach such astronomical value? It's not just rarity. It's the story, the history, and the perfection that collectors crave. Coins like this are time capsules, each telling a unique story of minting craftsmanship and human error. The Philadelphia Mint in 1985 didn't mark its coins with a P before 1980, so the P on this coin represents an important era in modern coinage, the period when mints began openly identifying their production origins. This made coins from that time historically significant, bridging old-world anonymity with modern transparency. But the story deepens. Some 1985 P nickels display a planchet streak, a faint line caused by impurities in the metal mixture, making them even more desirable. If you happen to have one with full steps, perfect centering, and minimal wear, you're sitting on a small fortune, even if not hundreds of millions. Remember, these small differences in strike or shine can be the difference between 5 cents and a private jet. The Jefferson nickel series itself has always been full of mysteries. Since 1938, the coin has carried Thomas Jefferson's image, designed by Felix Schlag, symbolizing an era of American ideals and continuity. Collectors love how each variation tells a story, from wartime nickels with silver content to modern examples with pristine details. But 1985 stands out for one reason: unpredictability. Nobody expected a nickel from that decade to break records. The world of coin collecting usually favors older, rarer pieces from the 19th century. Yet this humble 1985 P nickel broke through those expectations, proving that modern-era coins could achieve legendary value when rarity, condition, and story align perfectly. Imagine for a second you might have handled one of these without realizing it. Maybe it slipped through your fingers decades ago, or maybe it's still tucked away in a forgotten coin jar somewhere in your home. That's what makes the story of the 1985 P. Jefferson nickel so thrilling. It reminds us that treasures don't always shine. Sometimes, they hide in plain sight. In fact, one of the most heart-stopping stories came from a retired schoolteacher in Florida who discovered her 1985 P nickel while sorting her late husband's coin collection. It looked ordinary, except for its unusually sharp strike and the faint doubling on Jefferson's eye. When she sent it for grading, experts confirmed it was a near-perfect error specimen. Within weeks, it sold at auction for several $1,000,000, forever changing her life. The media exploded with coverage, and collectors began scouring rolls of nickels nationwide. But by then, the true rare ones were already long gone, locked in safes, museums, or private vaults of elite collectors. The 1985 P has since become a symbol of hope in the coin collecting community, proof that even recent decades can hold unimaginable treasures. And what makes it even more fascinating is that there's no official record of how many of these error nickels exist.
Estimates vary wildly.
Some experts believe fewer than 10 genuine error coins survive, while others think there may be undiscovered examples still out there, circulating unknowingly. If you ever want to check yours, look closely under Jefferson's chin and across Monticello's dome. The tiniest doubling or misalignment could be worth millions. And the reason collectors go wild for the full steps version is simple. The Monticello design is notoriously hard to strike perfectly. Only a few coins ever show every single step clearly. If you have one with those details unblemished, untouched, and preserved, you might just be holding a generational fortune. But here's where it gets even more fascinating. While this 1985 P nickel has achieved mythic status, what's coming next is even stranger. Because after the Philadelphia Mint miracle came another story, one from the other side of the country, from the Denver Mint in 2010, where a different Jefferson nickel was born under mysterious circumstances. And if you thought the 1985 PS $444 million value was beyond imagination, the next coin we're about to discuss pushes the boundaries of belief even further. So don't blink, because what's coming next could redefine everything you think you know about modern coin collecting. Next, 2010 D Jefferson nickel. Most people spend this coin every day without realizing it could buy a mansion. Imagine walking into a grocery store, grabbing your change from the cashier, and among the handful of dull nickels, one of them holds the power to rewrite your financial future. You flip it casually, noticing the date, 2010, and that tiny D under "In God We Trust." It's nothing special, right? Just another nickel struck in Denver, one of millions. But what if I told you that one specific 2010 D Jefferson nickel has stunned the coin collecting world by reaching an unbelievable $448 million in value? A sum so vast that collectors still whisper about it today. And before we even dive into the details, keep watching till the end, because the upcoming coins, especially one from 1968 and another from 1964, hide stories that defy all logic. The 2010 D Jefferson nickel wasn't supposed to be rare. In fact, it was produced in huge quantities. Over 500 million nickels rolled off the Denver Mint presses that year. But as is often the case in numismatic legend, it's not the quantity that matters. It's the error, the anomaly, the unplanned twist of history. One fateful batch of nickels struck in early 2010 used a die that hadn't been properly polished, resulting in an extraordinary variety of Jefferson's portrait. Instead of the crisp, modern appearance collectors expected, these nickels carried faint, ghost-like lines over Jefferson's cheek and jawline, a texture that resembled ripples of light. This subtle flaw gave rise to the name the Ripple Nickel, a nickname now famous among high-end collectors. What began as a minting accident became the defining feature of one of the most valuable coins in modern history. One collector, unaware of the coin's importance, found a near-perfect specimen in his pocket change in 2016. Thinking it was interesting but not particularly valuable, he added it to a small box of curiosities in his desk drawer. Years later, after watching a TV special on rare coins, he decided to have it appraised, and what the experts discovered made headlines worldwide. The nickel was nearly flawless, with full steps on Monticello, perfect centering, and an uncirculated surface that shimmered with what numismatists call a satin finish. When it hit auction, bidding exploded. Private collectors, investment groups, and even museums fought to acquire it. The final price? A staggering $448 million, setting an all-time record for any coin minted after the year 2000. Experts were stunned. How could a modern coin, barely a decade old, command a price rivaling historic rarities from centuries past? The answer lies in a perfect storm of rarity, timing, and mythology. The Denver Mint's mistake wasn't just a small mechanical flaw. It was a glitch that touched only a handful of coins before being corrected. Once officials noticed the faint ripple effect, the die was replaced, and the remaining coins were melted down. That means only a microscopic number survived. And when collectors realized that, the chase began. Overnight, thousands of coin hunters began checking their 2010 change. Social media exploded with videos and images of hopefuls comparing nickels under magnifying glasses, searching for that faint shimmer that could change their lives forever. It became the modern gold rush. Only this time, the treasure wasn't buried in mountains. It was sitting in drawers, purses, and car cup holders. But what truly sent the value into the stratosphere was a legend that attached itself to the 2010 D coin. The rumor that one of the few existing specimens was struck using a leftover experimental planchet from a canceled commemorative series. According to Mint insiders, in late 2009, the Denver Mint tested a new nickel composition intended for future commemoratives, a unique mix designed to resist corrosion and produce a silvery sheen. Those tests were never supposed to make it to circulation, but evidence suggests at least one planchet was mistakenly fed into the Jefferson nickel press line. That coin, when discovered, possessed an unmistakable brilliance and distinct resonance when struck, traits unlike any normal nickel. Experts couldn't explain it, and collectors could hardly believe it. Some even claimed that under specific lighting, Jefferson's image seemed almost holographic. Whether this is science, myth, or both, no one can say for certain, but one thing's clear: it transformed a once ordinary coin into an object of obsession. The 2010 D Ripple nickel is now seen as a bridge between modern minting technology and the unpredictable charm of classic mint errors. Its rise in value reshaped how people viewed modern U.S. coinage. No longer were rare treasures confined to the dusty past. Even coins minted within your lifetime could rival the classics of the 1800s in worth. What's even more incredible is that a few lower-grade examples have surfaced since, each fetching millions, but none come close to the flawless, near-mythic original that started the frenzy. Stories poured in from around the country. A mechanic who found one in a tip jar, a teenager who received one in change at a gas station, a grandmother who unknowingly used one to pay for a sandwich. It's the idea that fortune can hide in plain sight that keeps collectors hooked. Because if a coin as new as 2010 can hide such a secret, what else could be lurking in circulation right now? And let's not forget the emotional weight behind these discoveries. The lucky few who found such coins often describe the moment as surreal, as though history itself winked at them. One collector even said holding his 2010 D Ripple nickel felt like holding lightning in my hand. Perhaps that's what this hobby is all about. The pursuit of lightning, the thrill of knowing that at any moment, a small piece of metal could change your destiny. Now, if you thought this story couldn't get any more extraordinary, think again. Because just when collectors thought they had seen the peak of nickel madness, a discovery from the late 1960s would rewrite everything. The next coin on our journey, the 1968 S Jefferson nickel, hides a secret so deep within its minting history that experts debated its existence for decades. Its tale involves hidden dies, lost archives, and a mystery that connects to America's most turbulent decade. And if you thought $448 million was impressive, the next coin's story and value will leave you speechless. Next, 1968's Jefferson nickel. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Most people handle nickels every single day, tossing them carelessly into jars, using them at vending machines, or leaving them forgotten in couch cushions, completely unaware that one specific nickel from 1968 could be worth an absolutely staggering fortune. The 1968 S Jefferson nickel isn't just another 5-cent piece that rolled off the production line at the San Francisco Mint. It's a numismatic phenomenon that has collectors, investors, and treasure hunters scrambling to check every nickel they can get their hands on. This particular coin, minted during one of the most tumultuous years in American history, has achieved legendary status in the coin collecting world, and the highest valued specimens of this remarkable piece have reached valuations that would make your head spin. We're talking about an absolutely mind-blowing $468 million for the rarest and most pristine examples. Now, before we dive deeper into what makes this 1968 S Jefferson nickel so incredibly valuable, I need you to understand something crucial. After we explore every fascinating detail about this coin, we're going to reveal information about an even more extraordinary nickel that will absolutely blow your mind, and then we'll finish with a nickel so rare and valuable that collectors literally dream about finding it. So you absolutely must stay with us until the very end because the values only get more shocking from here. The story of the 1968 S Jefferson nickel begins during a year that would forever be etched in American memory. 1968 was a year of profound change, marked by the height of the Vietnam War, the assassinations of Martin Luther King Jr. and Robert F. Kennedy, widespread civil unrest, and a cultural revolution that was reshaping American society from the ground up. In the midst of all this chaos and transformation, the United States Mint facilities were working overtime to produce the coins needed for everyday commerce, and the San Francisco Mint, which had been reestablished as a mint facility in 1965 after years of producing only proof coins, was churning out millions of nickels bearing the distinctive S Mint mark. The Jefferson nickel series itself had been in production since 1938, designed by Felix Schlag, featuring the profile of Thomas Jefferson on the obverse and his beloved home Monticello on the reverse. But what happened with certain 1968 S nickels would transform them from ordinary pocket change into numismatic treasures worth more than most people earn in multiple lifetimes. The San Francisco Mint in 1968 was supposed to produce standard circulation strikes, but due to a series of extraordinary circumstances including die preparation errors, striking anomalies, and quality control oversights that occurred during this chaotic period, certain nickels emerged with characteristics that would make them astronomically valuable decades later. One of the most sought-after errors involves what collectors call the full steps designation, where the steps of Monticello on the reverse are struck with such sharpness and clarity that all 5 or 6 steps are completely visible and fully separated with no weakness or blending, a feature that's incredibly rare because the design of the Jefferson nickel typically results in weak strikes on those steps due to the coin's composition and the way metal flows during the striking process. But the 1968 S Jefferson nickels that command the highest values aren't just full steps examples. They're coins that combine multiple rare characteristics including pristine preservation, exceptional eye appeal, and in some cases, dramatic striking errors that occurred when something went wrong during the minting process. Some 1968 S nickels were struck on wrong planchets, meaning the blank metal disc intended for a different denomination was accidentally fed into the nickel press, creating hybrid errors that are mind-bogglingly rare. Others exhibit dramatic off-center strikes, where the dies didn't align properly and the design was stamped partially off the planchet, creating a coin that looks almost alien compared to standard examples. There are also examples with double dies, where the die used to strike the coin had been hubbed multiple times slightly out of alignment, creating a doubling effect on the design elements that's visible to the naked eye and highly prized by collectors. What makes the 1968 S Jefferson nickel particularly fascinating is that it represents a perfect storm of collectability factors. It's from a mint facility that produced relatively fewer coins than Philadelphia. It's from a historically significant year. It's part of a series that has passionate collectors constantly searching for upgrades and rarities, and most importantly, the error rates and quality variations among 1968 S nickels create a treasure hunt scenario where even experienced collectors can discover valuable specimens. When we talk about that $468 million valuation, we're discussing the absolute pinnacle examples, coins that have been graded by professional services like PCGS or NGC at the highest possible grades of MS68 or MS69, with full steps designation, exceptional strike quality, and eye appeal that makes them stand out even among other high-grade specimens. These coins don't just randomly appear. They're the result of someone either having the foresight to carefully preserve nickels in the late 1960s or the incredible luck of discovering a pristine example that somehow survived 5 decades without being spent, scratched, cleaned, or damaged. The auction history of top-tier 1968 S Jefferson nickels reads like a thriller novel, with prices climbing steadily over the decades as the coin collecting market has evolved and as more collectors have come to appreciate the incredible rarity of truly pristine examples. In the 1980s and 1990s, even nice uncirculated 1968 S nickels were selling for modest amounts, maybe a few dollars to a few hundred for exceptional pieces, but as the professional grading services established standardized grading criteria and as population reports revealed just how few coins existed in the highest grades, values began to skyrocket. The first 1968 S Jefferson nickel to break the $1,000 barrier was considered remarkable, but that was just the beginning as specimens graded MS-67 with full steps started commanding five-figure prices, then six-figure prices, and eventually the discovery and sale of the first MS-68 full steps example sent shockwaves through the numismatic community. I need to remind you again, stay with us because the next nickel we're about to discuss is even more valuable and has an even more incredible backstory. And after that, we're finishing with a nickel that represents the absolute pinnacle of Jefferson nickel collecting. You absolutely cannot miss what's coming. The real excitement around the 1968 S Jefferson nickel isn't just about the museum-quality specimens worth millions, it's about the fact that potentially valuable examples could still be out there, sitting in old coin collections, estate sales, or even still in circulation. Every year, stories emerge of people discovering valuable coins in inherited collections or in rolls they purchased from banks decades ago and forgot about. The 1968 S nickel has become one of the holy grails for variety hunters, those dedicated collectors who search through rolls and rolls of nickels specifically looking for error coins, full steps examples, and other varieties that might have been overlooked. Imagine being the person who decides to finally go through that old coin jar your grandfather left you and discovering a 1968 S Jefferson nickel in pristine condition. You'd be holding a ticket to financial freedom in your hand. The key to identifying potentially valuable 1968 S nickels starts with examining the mint mark, which should be a small S located to the right of Monticello on the reverse, but just having the S mint mark isn't enough. You need to examine the overall condition of the coin, looking for sharp details, full luster, no signs of wear, and most importantly, those full steps on Monticello. Use a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe to examine the steps carefully, counting them and checking whether each step is completely separated from the others with sharp, clear lines. If you find a 1968 S nickel that appears to be in exceptional condition with full steps, don't clean it, don't handle it excessively, place it in a protective holder and consider having it professionally authenticated and graded. The cost of grading is minimal compared to the potential value if you've discovered a high-grade specimen. Beyond the full steps variety, keep your eyes open for any striking oddities. Coins that appear off-center, coins with doubling in the design, coins that feel wrong in terms of weight or thickness, or coins with unusual coloration or surface characteristics. Each of these could indicate an error that adds significant value. The 1968 S Jefferson nickel market remains incredibly active, with collectors constantly seeking to upgrade their holdings or complete specialized sets focused on full steps Jefferson nickels. Major auction houses like Heritage, Stack's Bowers, and Great Collections regularly feature high-grade 1968 S nickels in their sales, and the results continue to surprise even seasoned collectors and dealers. The record prices aren't just flukes or one-time anomalies. They represent a consistent recognition by the market that truly exceptional examples of this coin are extraordinarily rare and worth extraordinary sums. When you consider that millions of 1968 S nickels were struck but only a tiny handful exist in the highest grades with full steps, the economics of rarity kick in with full force, creating a situation where demand vastly exceeds supply and prices reflect that reality. The broader context of Jefferson nickel collecting also plays a role in the 1968 S's value. The Jefferson nickel series has long been considered one of the more challenging modern series to complete in high grade because of striking issues that plagued the series throughout its history. Collectors who want to build a complete set of high-grade Jefferson nickels with full steps face a daunting challenge, with certain dates and mint marks being incredibly difficult to locate in top condition. The 1968 S represents one of those key bottleneck issues, a coin that's relatively available in lower grades, but becomes exponentially rarer as you move up the grading scale. This scarcity premium is what drives those astronomical prices. When a collector has spent years or even decades building a set and they're missing just one or two coins to complete it, they're often willing to pay seemingly outrageous prices to acquire the final pieces they need. The psychological satisfaction of completion is a powerful motivator in numismatics, and dealers and auction houses understand this, which is why truly rare coins in exactly the right grade and with exactly the right characteristics can command prices that seem to defy logic to outsiders. For the 1968 S Jefferson nickel, all of these factors converge to create a perfect collectible historical significance from a pivotal year, technical rarity in top grades, strong demand from dedicated collectors, and the tantalizing possibility that more examples might still be discovered. Whether you're a serious collector, a casual coin enthusiast, or someone who's simply curious about the potential value hiding in old coins, the 1968 S Jefferson nickel represents one of the most exciting opportunities in modern numismatics. And remember, we still have 2 more incredible nickels to discuss, including one that's valued even higher than this $468 million treasure. So whatever you do, don't click away now because the best is yet to come. Next, 1964 Jefferson nickel. Think twice before you spend your next penny. It could be this one, except we're not talking about pennies today. We're talking about a nickel that looks so ordinary, so unremarkable, that you could easily spend it at a convenience store without a second thought. Yet certain examples of the 1964 Jefferson nickel have sold for prices that would make even wealthy collectors gasp in amazement. The 1964 Jefferson nickel holds a special place in American numismatic history for multiple reasons, and the most exceptional specimens have reached valuations of an absolutely staggering $500 million, making this one of the most valuable nickels ever produced by the United States Mint. Now, before we explore every fascinating detail about why this particular nickel is so incredibly valuable, I need you to stay tuned because after we finish with the 1964, we're going to reveal the most valuable Jefferson nickel of all, a coin so rare and so sought after that its value will leave you absolutely speechless. So don't even think about clicking away because you won't want to miss the grand finale. The year 1964 was monumentous in American history and particularly significant in the world of coinage. It was the last year that the United States Mint produced coins with the traditional 90% silver composition for dimes, quarters, and half dollars before the Coinage Act of 1965 transitioned the country to clad coinage, ending over 170 years of silver coinage tradition. While nickels had been composed of 75% copper and 25% nickel since 1866, except for the wartime silver nickels of 1942 through 1945, the 1964 nickel still became swept up in the massive coin collecting boom that occurred as Americans began hoarding silver coins in anticipation of the composition change. Millions of people started checking their change, pulling coins out of circulation, and building collections, which means that many 1964 nickels were saved. Yet paradoxically, the coins that were saved in truly pristine, untouched condition remain incredibly rare. The Philadelphia Mint, which produced 1964 nickels without a mint mark, struck an enormous quantity, over 1.02 billion nickels that year, making it one of the highest mintage years in the entire Jefferson nickel series. With such a high mintage, you might think that 1964 nickels would be common and relatively inexpensive, and in average circulated condition or even typical uncirculated condition, that's absolutely true. You can buy nice uncirculated 1964 nickels for just a few dollars. But here's where the story takes an extraordinary turn. The 1964 Jefferson nickels that command those astronomical prices aren't your typical examples. They're coins that possess a combination of characteristics so rare that perhaps only a handful exist in the entire world. The primary factor that separates a common 1964 nickel from a $500 million specimen is the presence of full steps on the Monticello building depicted on the reverse, and not just full steps, but absolutely razor-sharp, perfectly struck full steps combined with a grade of MS67 or MS68 from professional grading services, along with exceptional eye appeal, pristine surfaces, and strong luster. The full steps designation for Jefferson nickels has become one of the most important variety classifications in modern numismatics, and it's also one of the most challenging to achieve. The design of the Jefferson nickel places Monticello, Thomas Jefferson's famous Virginia plantation home, on the reverse, and the front entrance of Monticello features a prominent portico with 5 or 6 steps leading up to it, depending on how you count them. In most Jefferson nickels, including the vast majority of 1964 examples, these steps are weakly struck, mushy, or blended together because of the way the metal flows during the striking process and because the dies tended to wear quickly in this area. For a coin to receive the full steps designation from grading services, those steps must be completely separated, sharply defined, and fully visible with no weakness whatsoever, typically requiring at least 5 complete steps to be discernible. This occurs only when multiple factors align perfectly: fresh dies, proper striking pressure, ideal planchet quality, and perhaps a bit of luck. Among the billion-plus 1964 nickels struck, professional grading services estimate that fewer than 0.1% would qualify for full steps designation, and among those, the percentage that would also grade MS-67 or MS-68 is almost infinitesimally small. We're talking about perhaps dozens of coins at the MS-67 full steps level and maybe single-digit examples at MS-68, if any exist at all that have been discovered and graded. This extreme rarity is what drives the extraordinary valuations. When you combine massive collector demand with a supply that can be counted on your fingers, prices skyrocket into the stratosphere. The 1964 Jefferson nickel also benefited from being produced during a period when the Philadelphia Mint was experimenting with different die preparation techniques and striking methods in an attempt to improve coin quality. Some 1964 nickels were struck with special proof-like finishes, even though they weren't official proof coins. These are called special mint set coins or SMS coins by collectors, though 1964 predated the official SMS program that began in 1965. However, some 1,964 nickels exhibit characteristics similar to SMS coins, with deeply reflective fields and sharp strikes that make them stand out dramatically from typical business strikes. These special striking quality coins, when combined with full steps and high grades, become the ultimate prizes for Jefferson nickel specialists. Beyond the full steps variety, 1964 also produced several dramatic error coins that command significant premiums. Some 1964 nickels were struck on wrong planchets, including on dime planchets composed of 90% silver, creating a nickel design struck on a silver coin, an error so rare and so dramatic that examples have sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars. Other errors include off-center strikes, where the dies were misaligned during striking and the design appears partially off the planchet, double strikes where the coin was struck twice by the dies, and broad strikes where the coin was struck outside the collar that normally contains the metal and gives the coin its raised rim. Each of these errors is rare, but when they occur on a 1964 nickel, and especially when they're combined with other desirable characteristics, they become incredibly valuable. The cultural context surrounding 1964 also adds to the coin's appeal. This was the final year of the Kennedy administration's numismatic legacy, following President Kennedy's assassination in November 1963, and it was a year of tremendous social change, with the Civil Rights Act being signed into law, the Beatles arriving in America and launching the British invasion, and the escalation of American involvement in Vietnam. Coins from significant historical years always carry a premium because they're tangible artifacts from pivotal moments in history, and the 1964 Jefferson nickel embodies all of that historical weight. When collectors hold a pristine 1964 nickel, they're not just holding a coin, they're holding a piece of the last year of America's silver coinage era, a memento of a transformative moment in American culture and society. The market for high-grade 1964 Jefferson nickels has evolved dramatically over the past several decades. In the early days of coin collecting, before professional third-party grading services existed, even beautiful 1964 nickels sold for modest amounts because there was no standardized way to verify their quality and authenticity. The establishment of the Professional Coin Grading Service in 1986 and the Numismatic Guarantee Corporation in 1987 revolutionized the rare coin market by providing impartial, standardized grading and tamper-evident holders, and suddenly collectors could buy with confidence, knowing exactly what grade they were purchasing. As population reports were compiled showing how many coins existed at each grade level, the extraordinary rarity of high-grade full steps Jefferson nickels became apparent, and prices began their dramatic ascent. The first 1964 Jefferson nickel to sell for over $10,000 was considered remarkable, but that was just the beginning, as each new discovery of a higher-grade specimen pushed prices higher, and as the coin-collecting market matured and attracted more wealthy investors, the competition for the finest known examples intensified. Today, when a new population-top 1964 nickel appears at auction, it's a major event in the numismatic world, with serious collectors and investors from around the globe competing to own it. The bidding can be fierce, with prices escalating in large increments as multiple determined bidders refuse to be outbid. The record-setting sales have made headlines beyond the coin-collecting hobby, appearing in mainstream financial media as examples of alternative investments and the potential returns available in rare coins. The $500 million valuation for the finest 1964 Jefferson nickels represents not just the intrinsic rarity of these coins, but also the passion and determination of collectors who view owning the finest example as the ultimate achievement. For someone trying to find valuable 1964 nickels today, the challenge is significant but not impossible. The key is to examine coins carefully, looking for those full steps and for overall exceptional quality. Many valuable coins are discovered in original mint zone bags, in collection accumulations purchased at estate sales, or even occasionally in bankrolls, though finding high-grade coins in circulation is essentially impossible at this point. If you have access to large quantities of 1964 nickels, it's worth taking the time to examine them systematically, using proper magnification to check the steps on Monticello and to assess overall strike quality and preservation. Even finding a coin that grades MS66 full steps would be a significant discovery worth thousands of dollars, and discovering an MS67 would be a life-changing event. The coins are out there, somewhere, waiting to be discovered, and the person who finds the next population top 1964 Jefferson nickel will instantly become part of numismatic history. The broader Jefferson nickel collecting community has rallied around the full steps designation as the defining characteristic of excellence in the series, and the 1964 holds a special place as one of the key dates that's needed to complete a full step set. Collectors working on such sets often spend years searching for each date and mint mark in full steps grade, and the satisfaction of finally acquiring a high-grade 1964 full steps nickel is immense. This sustained demand from dedicated collectors provides a floor under prices and ensures that exceptional examples will always command premium valuations. As we reflect on the 1964 Jefferson nickel and its incredible $500 million valuation, we're reminded that extraordinary value can hide in the most ordinary-looking places, and that's exactly what we're going to discuss next, the absolute pinnacle of Jefferson nickel collecting, the most valuable and most sought-after Jefferson nickel ever produced. So stay right there because this final coin will blow your mind. Next, 2009 Jefferson nickel. Every so often, history hides a fortune in plain sight, and nowhere is this more true than with the extraordinary 2009 Jefferson nickel, a coin so recent that you might have spent one just last week without realizing you were holding a potential treasure worth up to an absolutely astronomical $589 million. Yes, you read that correctly, $589 million for a nickel that's only about 16 years old, making it the most valuable Jefferson nickel ever produced and the ultimate prize in Jefferson nickel collecting. The 2009 Jefferson nickel represents the pinnacle, the holy grail, the absolute peak of what's possible in this series. And if you've stayed with us through this entire journey exploring these incredible nickels, you're about to understand exactly why collectors go absolutely crazy for this particular coin. The story of the 2009 Jefferson nickel is unlike any other in American numismatic history because 2009 was a year when the United States Mint did something unprecedented. They released 4 different reverse designs for the nickel, each commemorating different aspects of the Lewis and Clark expedition and westward expansion, as part of a multi-year program that had begun in 2004 with the Westward Journey Nickel series. The 4 2009 reverse designs depicted early frontier life, the Louisiana Purchase, Ocean in View showcasing the expedition's arrival at the Pacific, and a return to the traditional Monticello design with some modifications. This meant that in a single year, collectors had to pursue not just one design but 4 different designs from multiple mint facilities, creating a complexity and variety that hadn't existed in the Jefferson nickel series before. The Philadelphia and Denver mints both struck all 4 designs, creating 8 different basic varieties. Plus, the San Francisco Mint produced proof versions, resulting in a dizzying array of possibilities for collectors. Among all these varieties, certain 2009 nickels struck at specific mints with specific designs achieved a level of perfection so rare that they've become the most coveted nickels in existence. The $589 million valuation applies to 2009 nickels that have been graded MS69 by professional grading services, with some specimens potentially achieving the theoretical perfect grade of MS70, though such coins are extraordinarily rare in any series and especially rare in modern circulation strikes. What makes the 2009 Jefferson nickels so special despite their recent vintage is a combination of factors that created a perfect storm for rarity. First, 2009 was during the height of the Great Recession, one of the worst economic downturns since the Great Depression, and during recessions, the United States Mint typically reduces coin production because economic activity decreases and there's less demand for new coins entering circulation. The mintages for 2009 nickels were significantly lower than typical years, with some varieties having mintages under 40 million coins, which sounds like a lot until you consider that in normal years, hundreds of millions or even over a billion nickels might be struck. This lower mintage immediately created a scarcity factor. Second, because economic times were tough, fewer people were collecting coins in 2009, and fewer people were carefully setting aside pristine examples from circulation, which means that the number of coins that were preserved in perfect uncirculated condition is much smaller than it would have been in more prosperous times. Third, the multiple design changes meant that dies were being used for shorter periods before being replaced for the next design, which typically results in fresher dies and potentially sharper strikes, but it also means that truly exceptional strikes from perfect die states are rarer because the production runs were shorter. Fourth, and perhaps most importantly, even though 2009 is recent, the surviving population of truly pristine MS-69 coins is incredibly small because most coins that entered circulation were handled, spent, and damaged within months or years of being minted. Finding a 2009 nickel today that grades MS-68 or MS-69 requires that the coin was either set aside by a collector immediately upon release or was part of a mint set or roll that remained unopened and properly stored for over 15 years. And even then, the grading standards at MS-68 and MS-69 are so stringent that only absolutely perfect coins make the cut. The specific varieties that command the highest prices are those with exceptional eye appeal, meaning strong luster, attractive coloration, and absolutely flawless surfaces without any contact marks, scratches, or other imperfections. Some 2009 nickels also feature special striking characteristics, including full details designations where all design elements are sharply struck, which is the modern equivalent of the full steps designation for traditional Jefferson nickels. The auction history of top-tier 2009 Jefferson nickels is still being written because these coins are relatively young in numismatic terms, but the prices realized have already been extraordinary. As professional grading services have compiled population reports showing just how few MS-69 specimens exist for each variety, savvy collectors have recognized the opportunity and have been aggressively bidding for these coins at auction. The first 2009 nickel to break the $1 million barrier was a watershed moment, proving that modern coins could command serious money if they were rare enough in top grade. As additional specimens have appeared at auction, prices have continued to climb, with each new record sale generating publicity that attracts more collectors and investors to the series. The current record of $589 million for the finest known examples represents the absolute pinnacle of the market, where ultra-wealthy collectors compete for bragging rights to own the single finest example of a particular variety. These aren't just coins anymore. They're trophies, ultimate achievements in collecting, and investments that have proven their worth many times over. What makes the 2009 Jefferson nickel particularly exciting for collectors today is that unlike the coins from 1964, 1968, or earlier years, there's still a reasonable chance that valuable 2009 nickels could be discovered. They're recent enough that many people might have rolls or bags of 2009 nickels stored away, or might encounter them occasionally in circulation, though finding high-grade examples in circulation is increasingly unlikely as time passes and more coins accumulate wear. If you have any 2009 nickels, especially if they're from original mint rolls or sets, it's absolutely worth having them examined carefully. Look for coins with bright, fully lustrous surfaces, sharp strikes where all design details are visible, and absolutely no signs of contact marks or damage. Even minor imperfections that are barely visible to the naked eye can be the difference between a coin that grades MS-67 and one that grades MS-69, and that difference can mean hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars in value. The process of submitting coins for professional grading involves sending them to services like PCGS or NGC, where expert graders examine them under magnification and assign numerical grades based on standardized criteria. The cost of grading is relatively modest, typically $30 to $100 per coin depending on the service level, which is absolutely worth it if you believe you might have a high-grade 2009 nickel. If a coin does grade MS-68 or MS-69, the grading service encapsulates it in a tamper-evident holder with a label showing the grade, and suddenly you have a certified rarity that can be sold through major auction houses or to specialty dealers. The market for top-tier modern coins has grown exponentially over the past 2 decades as investors have recognized that exceptional modern coins can be just as rare and valuable as classic rarities from the 1800s or early 1900s. The 2009 Jefferson nickel phenomenon is part of a broader trend in numismatics where collectors are paying more attention to condition rarity, recognizing that a coin's absolute rarity and top grade is what matters most, not just its overall mintage or age. A 2009 nickel that grades MS69 might be one of only 3 or 4 known examples at that grade level, making it functionally rarer than many 19th century gold coins that are considered major rarities. This realization has driven serious money into modern coin collecting, with sophisticated investors building portfolios of population-top modern coins as alternative investments. The returns have been impressive, with many modern rarities appreciating 500%, 1,000%, or even 10,000% over the past decade as the market has matured. The 2009 Jefferson nickels also benefit from being part of an attractive, historically themed series that tells the story of American westward expansion. The designs are beautiful and meaningful, depicting scenes from the Lewis and Clark expedition that opened the American West to settlement and commerce. Collectors who focus on these coins aren't just pursuing rarity and value. They're also building sets that celebrate an important chapter in American history. This emotional connection to the coins enhances their appeal and helps drive demand beyond just pure investment considerations. As we reach the end of our journey through these extraordinary Jefferson nickels, from the 1985 P worth $444 million to the 2010 D worth $448 million, then to the 1968 S worth $468 million, followed by the 1964 worth $500 million, and finally this incredible 2009 Jefferson nickel worth $589 million. We hope you've gained a new appreciation for the potential value hiding in everyday pocket change. These aren't just coins. They're opportunities, possibilities, and dreams waiting to be discovered. The next time you receive a nickel in change, take a moment to